A gunshot shattered the stillness of Rio Blanco Canyon as dawn brushed the sandstone cliffs. Tala didn't flinch, her eyes locked onto the figures moving through the pine forest below. 5 riders, too close. Too many. The early light revealed rifles, saddles, and the cold stares of bounty hunters. They had found the trail. Behind her, the boy stood frozen, both hands clenched around a pouch of dried corn, as if it were his last charm against the world. Tala turned back, offering no long explanation. "Run." The boy nodded. No tears, no questions, just trust. They charged up the slope, boots skidding on loose rock, cutting through thorny brush and jagged stone. The forest was too quiet, the kind of silence that meant someone was already waiting. A second shot rang out, closer this time. A bullet slammed into a tree beside Tala's head, splinters grazing her cheek and drawing blood. She didn't stop. Hooves thundered behind them. The hunt had become a chase. Tala knew every outcrop, every narrow trail in this canyon. But that morning, she understood something else as well. If they were caught, it wouldn't be just death, it would be erasure, and she would not let that happen. Tala yanked the boy sharply onto an old mining path, carved into the mountainside like an ancient scar. The trail was so narrow, it barely fit 2 feet side by side. Beyond it yawned a bottomless void, where the white bones of Rio Blanco lay exposed at the canyon floor. Wind screamed through the gorge, tearing at their clothes, as if trying to rip them off the mountain. "Stay close to the rock. Don't look down," Tala said quickly, her voice hard as stone. Behind them, the sound of hooves came to a halt. The pursuers were forced to dismount. Iron-shod boots struck stone. Metal clanged against leather. They were closing in, too close. Tala knew there was no time left. She reached into the cloth pouch at her hip and pulled out the last small clay jar. Inside was gunpowder she had stolen months earlier from a military storehouse. Tala smashed the jar against a rock ledge, sparks bursting from the flint in her hand. A flash of light split the canyon, followed by a thunderous explosion. Screams tore through the air. One man went down. Horses reared in panic, stones cascading into the abyss below. Without waiting to see the outcome, Tala grabbed the boy and sprinted past the final bend in the trail, plunging into the pitch-black mouth of an abandoned mine. Inside, the air was icy and heavy with memory, a place that had once sheltered others who were hunted before them. Tala lit a pine resin torch, its weak flame trembling against the rock walls. At least, in this darkness, they were still alive. Inside the abandoned tunnel, the glow of a pine resin torch washed over damp, icy rock walls, revealing old carvings and the ashes of past hideouts. Tala sat the boy down and quickly checked his scraped knee. There was blood, but not much. She let out a quiet breath of relief. "Who are they?" the boy asked in Apache, his voice trembling but unbroken. Tala watched the flickering flame for a long moment before answering. "People who get paid to call killing justice." "Then Wanos." The boy fell silent, then asked, "Why us?" The question hung in the darkness. Tala knelt in front of him, the firelight sharpening the hollow lines of her face, worn but unyielding. "Because we still exist," she said slowly, "and that frightens them." Outside, sunlight was creeping up toward the mouth of the canyon. The pursuers would regroup, as they always did. Tala knew that running forever was not an answer. She unrolled an old, battered map, drawn by memory and blood. Only one path remained north, through burned land, through places no army wanted to enter. She had sworn at her brother's last breath that she would save the Apache families who still lived, no matter the cost. That vow had led her here hungry, hunted, bleeding yet still standing. Tala rolled the map shut. "We move at night," she said, not as a promise, but as a command to fate itself. When night fell over Rio Blanco, the desert did not sleep, it whispered. Dry grass rustled like footsteps, wolves howled between the rocks, and the wind carried old secrets drifting through the dust. Tala crouched low in a thicket, eyes fixed on the valley below where the faint glow of a campfire flickered. The 3 remaining riders were resting, laughing carelessly, convinced their prey had run out of road. The boy pressed close behind her, breathing fast with fear. Tala gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "Wait," she whispered. They needed time, and the darkness was on their side. Unable to return to the familiar trails, Tala chose the bone trail. This forgotten path cut across razor-sharp cliffs and ancient burial grounds, places even the Apache avoided unless driven to the very edge. It was land of legend and taboo, but also the only way north. When the moment came, they slipped from hiding like smoke in the wind. No fire, no footprints. Tala led the boy across a dry riverbed littered with white bones, cattle, deer, human mingled beneath a cold, star-filled sky. The wind screamed through the stone gaps like forgotten prayers. The boy murmured, "They'll follow." Tala didn't look back. "Maybe," she said, "but this path is older than they are, and it remembers who belongs here." Pale dawn seeped into the bone trail, turning the cliff faces a cold, metallic bronze. The air here was different, heavy, unnervingly silent, so much so that even the boy sensed it. "This place, it's listening," he whispered. Tala didn't answer, but her pace slowed, every step more deliberate. Among ancient stone pillars carved with symbols worn down by time, Tala spotted footprints, not moccasins, not bounty hunters' boots. These prints were deep, even carrying the weight and discipline of a soldier. Someone had passed through before them. Recently. Alone. The path narrowed until the sky became only a thin gray strip overhead. Heat built up like the inside of a stone tomb. "Can we turn back?" the boy whispered. "No," Tala said, her voice hard as rock. "There is no way back." She knelt beside a pile of stones stacked just slightly wrong, a subtle sign only someone familiar with battlefields would notice. A scout's signal. But something was off, an older variation woven with Apache markings. A chill ran down Tala's spine. "This person knows us," she said quietly, "and knows the language of our ancestors." The bone trail was no longer just an escape route. It had become a game board, and somewhere nearby, an unseen player was already making the moves. Do you think this stranger is an enemy or an ally? Leave a comment and follow for the next part, because from this moment on, Tala's fate is no longer hers alone to decide. Tala sensed his presence before she heard a sound. Another breath in the air, a pause in the silence that didn't belong to the mountains. She spun, a knife snapping into her hand just as the man stepped out of the rock's shadow, no more than 10 paces away. He wore a faded cavalry coat, one arm wrapped in blood-stained bandages long since dried. A rifle hung across his chest, but it wasn't raised. His gray eyes were cold, not rushed, not aggressive, only watchful. "I was waiting to see when you'd notice me," he said, his voice low and even. He introduced himself as Elias Va, a cavalry captain. Tala didn't lower the blade. In this land, that title meant blood. Va slowly tossed a military medal onto the ground between them. "I don't stand with them anymore," he said. "I saw Red Mesa. Women, children. The army hires bounty hunters so they don't have to dirty their own hands." The boy took a hesitant step forward, trembling. "Why help us?" Va looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because if I don't, there won't be anyone left." Silence stretched on. The wind slid along the bone trail as if weighing the choice itself. At last, Tala lowered her knife not out of trust, but because it was the only option left. 3 people, 3 different wounds, standing in a land that offered no mercy. From that moment on, they were no longer just the hunted. The escape had become a fragile alliance, and more dangerous than ever. When night closed in over the bone trail, Tala led them toward Devil's Shelf, a razor-thin spine of rock suspended between sky and abyss. This path was not for the hesitant. One misstep meant vanishing forever. Even the wind screamed like a warning. They moved in absolute silence. Tala went first, feet pressed tight to the stone, testing every hold before committing her weight. The boy followed, face pale but dry-eyed, breath held tight. Va brought up the rear, his coat pulled taut by the cold wind. Blood seeped again from the old wound, but he didn't make a sound. A gunshot suddenly ripped through the darkness. Stone exploded where Va had been standing moments before. A shooter above them. They'd caught up. Tala yanked both of them flat against the cliff, her heart pounding hard while her mind stayed cold. She scanned the terrain and saw it fractured rock veins and a loose, rubble-filled slope above. A decision flashed. "Keep moving," she ordered Va, her voice leaving no room for argument. I'll hold them. Va understood at once. You'll die. Maybe, Tala said. But if I don't, we all will. Without waiting for another word, Tala turned away and climbed into the dark slope, carrying the last of the explosives. Devil's Shelf was no longer an escape route. It became the place where Tala wagered her own life to carve a path forward for those who remained. Flames tore through the night like a blazing wound across Devil's Shelf. Tala hurled the explosive down the slope at the exact moment the pursuers stepped into the killing zone. The blast thundered and the mountainside convulsed. Rock, earth, and fire surged downward like an ancient fury, swallowing the screams below. But the shockwave also ripped the stone from beneath Tala's grip. The ledge collapsed under her feet. For a split second, the star-filled sky spun wildly, then everything went black. Tala fell, her body smashing against rock, the breath crushed from her lungs. The world dissolved into nothingness. From the canyon floor, Va looked up in horror as dust and debris swallowed the space where Tala had stood. The boy screamed her name, his voice breaking apart in the wind. No answer came. Only crushing silence and the burning stench of smoke clawing at their lungs. A long while later, when the ground finally stilled, Va stepped toward the edge, his heart heavy. If she's dead, he said quietly to the boy, as if trying to convince himself, we'll know. Then, from beneath the collapsed rock, a hoarse cough echoed up, weak but real. Help me. In that instant, despair shattered into fragile hope. Tala had not vanished. She was still fighting even from the depths of the abyss. They left Devil's Shelf before dawn, carrying a badly wounded Tala while time bled away. Fever burned through her, her breaths shallow and ragged, as if each one might be her last. Va carried her across steep rock faces, while the boy walked ahead, his eyes no longer those of a child fleeing, but of someone leading the way. When rain poured down over Ghost Hollow, the sound of hooves thundered behind them. The army had entered cursed land. There was nowhere left to hide, no detours remaining. Half delirious, Tala opened her eyes and whispered a name through cracked lips. Raven's Nest. At daybreak, the forest broke apart, revealing a barren plateau ringed by sheer cliffs, a place with no roads, no footprints of war. They had barely laid Tala down when shouts erupted. Soldiers surged onto the plateau, rifles leveled. Va fired back, each shot precise, but they were badly outnumbered. As one soldier lunged toward the boy, an arrow slammed into his chest without warning. From the cliffs above, Apache warriors emerged silent, decisive. The fight ended as quickly as it began. The attackers were disarmed and driven away. An elder stepped forward, looking down at Tala's unconscious form. She is one of ours, he said. Then he turned to Va. And you may remain only because you brought her home. Raven's Nest was more than a refuge. It was the final line between annihilation and survival. The days that followed passed slowly in Raven's Nest. Tala's fever finally broke on the third night. When she opened her eyes fully, the haze of pain was gone, replaced by the sharp clarity she'd always carried. Va was still sitting beside her, quiet as a shadow that had never left. The boy, meanwhile, ran across the plateau learning the names of the stars, learning how to set traps, and laughing again for the first time. The Apache warriors did not accept Va easily, but he never demanded that they do. He helped repair old rifles, set snares, and shared what he knew. He didn't paint his face in tribal colors or ask for forgiveness, he simply acted. News soon drifted up from the south. Fort Stanton had been abandoned, the commanding officer recalled. The hunt dissolved. The map had changed. No one was chasing these canyons anymore. On the first morning of snowfall, Tala stood on the high ridge, looking out over the land now washed in white. You could leave, she said to Va. I could, he replied, but I won't unless you want me to. She smiled. Then stay. In a land once defined by fire and blood, they began to build something worth protecting. No longer the hunted, no longer a deserter, just survivors free. If you believe freedom is always worth fighting for, leave a comment and follow for the next chapter of the story.